Climate lockdowns. What was once dismissed as a conspiracy theory is now moving closer to reality. Environmental activists are claiming that we're facing a climate emergency and lockdowns are necessary to save the planet. Hurd has the details.
In early December, the Washington Post reported that because of climate change, snow in the Mountain West may vanish for years at a time. The headline did not age well. Only days later in the West, it started to snow. And snow. And snow. This incredible photo was taken at Donner Summit in California around Christmas. Lake Tahoe got 16 feet of snow in December, breaking a 50-year record. In early January, some Virginia motorists were stuck on I-95 for more than 24 hours after snow and ice made the road impassable. Add this headline to a long string of failed climate change predictions. This headline from the London Independent predicting no more snowfalls is more than 20 years old. Climate experts now seem to have hedged their bets, saying global warming will both increase and decrease snowfall. Weather Bell meteorologist Joe Bastardi says more snow or less snow, it's called a normal winter.
The weather is always going back and forth. This is way, way within the realm of what you can expect in the kind of winter we have here.
But climate activists continue to insist that we face a worldwide climate emergency. And there's been more talk of the need for what are called climate lockdowns. Over the holidays, environmentalists staged what they called Occupy Biden, an 8-day protest outside Joe Biden's Delaware home demanding that he take action on the climate.
We're calling upon President Biden to issue an executive order declaring a climate emergency. He's already said it's a code red emergency.
Dozens of nations have already declared a climate emergency, including the entire European Union. And now, after accusing climate skeptics of inventing a conspiracy theory about climate lockdowns, there has been increasing talk of instituting climate lockdowns, modeled after COVID lockdowns and under a system called environmental authoritarianism, in which your right to drive a car or fly in a plane or own a big house could be suspended by the government in order to fight climate change.
Americans have to do with less. We're going to drive less, fly less, eat less meat. They're already talking about sustainable housing, shutting down the suburbs. This is the progressive vision of how you make people do with less in a climate emergency.
A recent article in the influential magazine Foreign Policy suggested democracy may not be compatible with reaching climate goals. This, even though actual weather statistics do not show there is a serious problem with the climate. Theoretical physicist Dr. Steve Koonin, former Undersecretary of Energy during the Obama administration, says the weather record shows there is no climate emergency.
Heat waves in the U.S. are now no more common than they were in 1900. No global trends in drought or in floods. Greenland's ice sheet isn't melting any more rapidly now than it was 80 years ago. That there's no long-term trend in hurricanes over the last 100 years.
But climate activists are advancing their agenda anyway, and new government regulations continue to punish and defund more reliable and less expensive fossil fuel sources in favor of less reliable and more expensive renewable energy.
President Biden, he should have the federal agencies oppose any new fossil fuel infrastructure.
So basically, this political movement has declared war on fossil fuels, and a lot of people have concluded in the industry, and also people who just are investors, that this sector has no future.
Rising energy prices this winter could be only the beginning. A recent study in the journal Nature found that meeting reduced carbon emission targets will cost more than $2 trillion annually. That's more than $5,000 per American per year, with cost by the end of this century totaling $1 quadrillion. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, you look at all of these debates about climate change and, the old adage, if you don't like the weather, wait, it's going to change. If you're looking at shifting weather patterns, that frankly is nothing new to the planet. The Sahara Desert used to be a thriving garden. Right here in America, we have people old enough to remember the Dust Bowl days of the Midwest and how that drove people to California because you couldn't grow crops anymore in what is now the breadbasket of the world. So will climate change? The answer is yes. The bigger issue is what was a real popular theory back 15 years ago, peak oil, that we are going to run out of a finite resource. We're going to run out of oil. And that should have led us into investing more into renewable energy sources, which over the long haul will be cheaper if we throw the investment that's needed to develop it. So that's my answer to all of this. It's not a lockdown. How do we develop renewable energy? There have been various proposals coming out of Washington that are focused on that. But how do we get to a place where solar and wind and tidal forces, geothermal, all of those things take their place in trying to reduce our overall demand on oil? And if peak oil is true, that it's a finite resource, there's only a certain amount of oil under the ground, well, then the faster we develop alternative energy, the better we'll all be.